if you have those stories. Once you understand that, you'll understand that the hybrid Europeans are not the people of the land, and the U.S. corporation democracy is not legitimate government, but are actually inquisition operations of them stealing your land and your resources. That's the truth, and that's what your relationship is with Liberia.
Then a lot of
It's a political transplant
that Moors from
from the
Mexico,
north,
from the north, from here.
or transport Balboa.
And wasn't that called?
No,
Is that called? What is it when they become immigrants? Not immigrant.
no, they were though they were accepted because a lot of the family on that side already know that America and Africa on that side are both African. America is just the name of this side, Al Morocco or Morocco or Maghreb is simply Morocco, the most extreme west, which is here. And so, but the problem that I find in talking with many of the family is the corrupted mind that many of our people have taken back there in the name of Christianity because of the misinformation that we've been trained with here, and that biased and superior pseudo righteous mindset that they have with that corruption, rather than recognizing the truth of the matter is that we're all one people.
Malik Day says, "How do we write ourselves back in Morocco without the United States?"
Well, you're doing it as you become conscious. Because remember, the only reason why the U.S. corporation operations is written in is because we've accepted the fraud. So once you know the truth, you take it through the hedges and the highways and expose it. And it's falling apart today. In these days, it's finally taking what you call real effect. That has much to do with everything crashing or everything that was constructed by the priesthood. See, because in the Piscean energy, the dark priesthood had full reign because of the energy, the denseness of the energy. So they could make up all kinds of schisms and teach it to the people and call it religion. However, in the Aquarian energy, with the electrical energy of Uranus striking everything and Saturn cashing all checks, and we're talking about ethereal checks, it can't be maintained. And so, you see the people waking up willingly and unwillingly, both. They're coming into the new era of time, kicking and scratching. You know how they always ask for the truth, and then when they get it, they've been running? Well, the Aquarian lights won't allow that anymore. And so the Aquarian lights that will refer to metamorphically or anthropomorphically as Jesus coming again, or the age of Aquarius, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, of I know. So people will be downloaded spiritually even if they weren't seeking it. It's a matter of development.
It's like an upgrade.
Yes, it was what it really
It's an
what it is.
upgrade.
And more people will just have lucid dreams, but it is part of really the activation of the pineal gland. That's all. So the ritual would be, the African ritual would be anointing my head with oil. That simply means the activation of the symbol of the pine cone, which is actually pineal gland. That's the truth. And it's also symbolized anthropomorphically with the ritual of ascending onto heaven, or the activation of the Kundalini. Kundalini is actually the activation of the pineal gland. So when you hear those terms in the Bible, that's what it actually means anthropomorphically. It actually means the activation of the spiritual glands of the body, and the awakening of the dormant light in the DNA. And the anthropomorphic stories of Jesus, etc., are really for children. And as you grow up, then you understand it's actually the science of the evolution of the body and of the spirit of man and the cognizance of man in relationship to both the astral and the concrete or the physical world. Also, the activation of the different chambers of the mind. So now the blind see. That's what that means. And the deaf hear. That's what it means. So you call it consciousness, coming from the dead, rising from the dead.
Somebody's asking a question. I don't even know if you know what they did, but I'll ask it. It says, does Victor Olulatabi, does Grand Sheik understand the meaning behind the ceremony the Arabs did in Egypt on the 3rd of April? What did they do?
You have to tell me.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to tell us. Because I'm not sure.
Because Africans do ceremonies. And
I wonder, was that the mummy? Was that was in the movement of
the? You talking about the movement?
Was that the movement of the mummies? I don't know whether is it he's talking about the mummies.
If it's the movement of the mummies, if that's what they're making reference to, all you have to think is the Khazarian operators, i.e., calling themselves Jews and are not Jews, have been ruling the world, for these last hundreds of years, and they're losing power. You can look at the thoughts that may be among themselves, recognizing that some of the spells that was cast by the matriarchy of the high house, what you might call the pharaohs, actually has some power, and that they're trying to kind of make amends.
Yeah, they took like 22.
How about it?
If that's what it's about, they took 22 mummies and moved them to a brand new museum.
And keep in mind, it ain't all of them, because remember, the demons are grave diggers, which is why they have the mummies of our forefathers in all of their museums. They're grave diggers, and one of the
grave robbers.
Yeah, grave diggers and grave robbers. Yes, you're grave robbers. You're right. And always having shown disrespect for the burial grounds all over the world. However, they also didn't take serious a lot of the spells that were cast, and some written in stone on many of the tombs, etc. And they actually have this idea that nothing could bring them down or bring their power down, and they started enjoying the thrones that they had robbed, particularly since the Napoleonic Wars. And most of you or scholars know them going around the world shooting off the noses of the ancient ones on statues and stones to hide the real history, etc. However, the experiences that they've been having as of late are leaning to the point that their institutions are being dismantled, and out of discomfort, for two reasons. Out of discomfort, thinking that they will make amends by bringing them together, and you also recognize they're also sending some artifacts that they've stolen from different African countries back to their places of origin. So you can kind of look at it along that line, recognizing sort of like when George Washington closed the lodge at Broad and Jupiter in Philadelphia, the Masonic Lodge, when he did the whoa, how they closed the lodge like that, when they thought they struck Hiram, and that Hiram was dead, the great architect,
Hiram,
and Hiram of Biff, the lamb of Biff, etc., great architect, and find out that they had a substitute. They thought they had totally conquered us, and find out we ain't really dead. And some things that they have promoted that when they've murdered many of us, that many of us would not come back. And out of experience, they're discovering that a lot of these people that they're looking at in the modern times are really ancient people come back again. And while they would not accept that, evidence is coming about that they can't deny that, and they recognize that they don't have the power they thought they had. So they gather up the mummies, thinking that, as a token of respect, that some of them will be remembered as this transition is taking place. So some of them will be taken off planet, some of them will be disappeared, some of them will not be re-embodied. And so some of them are, say, trying to buy favor, as they might say, from the gods. Uh, think about it. Maybe that's it.
Jason L says, ask, do the Chinese know about the Moors?
Of course they do, because they are Moors.
You know, we hear a lot about China, and I know there's the people of China, and then there's the so-called CCP. But when you get down into the backstory, you find out that
CCP is really the Khazarian operators who have invaded China. You all remember the Opium Wars, and then you'll understand the Communist Party that have nothing to do with the Aboriginal people of China. They've been under occupation. That's being dismantled. Also,
but what I was going to say is that there's been a lot of gold stolen, Chinese gold stolen by the U.S. And so
you say the Vatican.
The Vatican.
There you go.
And so they're, you know, everybody's complaining about them coming over here taking land, but they're taking it in lieu.
Concepts are wrong. Concepts are wrong.
That's what I mean. People are saying.
Remember, that's the hybrid Europeans making those statements.
Right. So they're saying that
Chinese have been here with us, our brothers, for thousands of years, not hundreds, thousands of years. And if you go to many of the ancient or Chinese elders, and they'll tell you about the Naga, because many of them are descendants of the Naga, coming from central Omexum, that you now call Asia Seoul or Africa today. That's the truth. And for those who want to look at family, etc., how about looking at Nigeria? And then look at a lot of traditions and customs. And then remember some of the activities in Africa dealing with albinos in traditions and customs. Then look again at Tianyi, what did you call China, i.e. Manchuria. Even look at the architecture. Even look at the headdress with the tassels. Look at the structures. Look at the colors, how they're used, the vibrations, the herbs. You got to understand that we're extended family. Get over it.
Here's a question. Noble Drew Ali's parents were Noble Drew Ali's parents Mary and Joseph?
Well, you can look at it this way. The principle of Mary and Joseph is Isis and Horus, actually. And yes, you come again. But then you got to recognize what you see and where you see it. And it needs no proof. Just look at the work. You got to remember, well, you got to re-know, really, because you already know, that some of you are your own forefathers. So get over that too. A lot of concepts that we've adopted under Rome's misdirection will be cleared up and dissolved.
Chronicle asks this question. I have this is funny. Dr. G, please ask Taj when he thinks the people will get their hands on free energy technology that could help relieve the people's economical burden. But before he answers the question, no, but before he answers the question, there's just something that happened today. So there was a light in my powder room that blew out.
Oh, you don't tell him that.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell him. There was a light blew out in my powder room. So I said to Grand Sheik, we're going to Home Depot. I need to get a new light to replace the light. So he reached up in the socket and he took the one of the two lights, the blown out one, out. And he held it to his cheek and like he was rubbing against his cheek. And I thought he was listening to it. I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm electric, and sort of normally I can restore, through this process because I have a lot of electricity running to me." So he rubs the bulb against his face, a big round bulb, and then he plugs it back up in the socket, and the light comes on. So talking about free electric energy.
Well, we're electrical.
He is, if I don't know about me and you, but the Grand Sheik already is dealing with free electrical energy because I have never seen anything like that in my life. I've never seen that. I throw a brother away. I thought you were going to listen to it to see if you could hear the filament, but you rubbed it against your cheek and then plugged it back in, and it came on. You're electric. Now you can answer the question.
I'll go back to the question.
Do you? I have to tell him, but you know how I am. When do you think we'll get our hands on free energy technology that could help relieve the people's economic burden? How can we do what you did?
As this biological war that's being waged against humanity wanes, and the waning of it has much to do with the consciousness of the people, meaning that the people are really kind of like being exposed. It has more to do with taking the blinders off of people's eyes. Because the ancient technologies of Hikupta and the Yucatan, that's thousands of years old. It's not even thousands, it's actually millions.
What have they found in tombs? Generators.
This is what's going to happen. They are going to start giving to the public little pieces of technology in instrumentalities to bypass the Khazarian operators' monopoly on oil and gas and all this stuff, which is really, really primal or very primitive technology. Those riding around in tin cans with motors in them. And the reality is, after this period that you're going through right now is actually a learning period, a lesson period, and then when it opens back up, you'll start being introduced to the natural energy sources that don't enslave humanity, but a little at a time so that you don't go out to lunch. And also, while this period is taking place, you're going to be learning some moral and ethical principles to be restored among humanity so you can stop abusing each other. And also stop being misguided by your misconceptions of what money is and what money is not, and the use of money in the manners that you've been trained for generations, because over a period of time, not in this cycle, but at the end of this cycle, that will be phased out too.
Eddie Falk Jr., I don't know what your question or statement is, so you're going to have to repeat it. I apologize, but I don't see it. Oh, wait a minute. No, this is, excuse me. What is this? I don't know what that means. Eddie Falk Jr., you need to make your question a little clearer. It's very confusing. It doesn't even seem, I don't know what you're talking about. So repeat it. In the next few minutes, I'll ask the question. Please break down. Here we go. That one. See in pieces. Please break down Moors as it relates to the Americas. You've already done.
Moors is America.
Yeah.
Moors is only a short for Al Moroccan, which is the dialectical of Moroccan. That's all it is. Al is Moorish Latin, means descendant down from Moroccan. Al Moroccan, American. You're Moors. That's just short.
And America is north, Central and
South
South.
is one continent. Don't get confused with the Panama Canal cut through for shipping and trade. All of it is north, west, southwest Africa, northwest, southwest of Mexico. Africa on the other side is east. And America is ancient Mexican, the prefix AME, and the suffix of Africa put together. That's America. This is only for desert, what you call territorial, longitude and latitude locations. That's all. But it's all Africa. All Mexican. And we call the Earthland also Asia. That's where you get Asia.
Let me ask you about when you say Asia Soul, what do you
Asia Soul means Asia South. That you call it today. Asia Soul, Asia South, the South part. So now you're talking about Dodo, King Tyree's daughter, the great matriarch, and of course Dodo establishes Morocco in the south with South America, and in on that side, and also dealing with Phoenicia, Nefertiti's daughter. That's Phoenicia, or what you call the Iberian Peninsula that you call Europa now today. All of that's you. The Picts. That's why they would call your children Pickaninny, because you're the Picts. You're the real You're the real Europeans, the original Europeans, the Aboriginal of the land.
Are you aware of the Treaty of Nanking, 1856?
Yes.
What is that?
And it's, huh?
Does that refer to us?
Yes, all of it. Everything.
Treaty.
All your treaties, when you start doing the research, you'll find that all of these treaties, all of those major treaties, particularly in the 1800s, are dealing with different Moorish provinces. So don't get confused with the different names, etc. They're just territorials. Just like when the people here, they get confused with the names of the territories. As an example, when we talk about the Renapi, the people say Lenape. It's not Lenape. Renapi.
It's because we see a L-E.
Yeah, Renapi. That would be in this north part of this territory that you call today Delaware. Delaware, Moors, etc. In this area, the Nanakoki Moors, etc. And you go do the research and you see they're just simply Moors. These are territorial names. Don't get it confused. You understand?
Yeah.
And so you see, as the hybrid Europeans are commonly known as the pale face. Like when you hear a lot of our forefathers referred to as the pale face or the Albions, those who have the recessive gene, or referred to in the Bible as the people with the lesions on their skin and we're put behind a rock until their lesions were all white, taken first to the Isle of Patmos near Turkey, then taken to the land of Angles, which becomes Ingla land or England. Now those are hybrids or the results of experiments and also of albinos, which is why England was called Albion when the Moors ruled. So you need to understand that the hybrid Europeans are simply amalgamated Moors, which is also mentioned in the Bible.
Here's a question by Bosi. Hope it's right. Bosi Day. What is the difference between Manchuria and Tayani? Tiani. Tiani.
All reference to the area of China.
Both. Mm-hmm. There's no difference, in other words.
Yeah. That's why you got to know. You got to really know how China is more what you would call political, corporate trade. Manchuria or Manchurians is really the Naga bloodlines. from Africa.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question. I don't know if, with the time we have left. When from True Bay, when choosing a partner, what signs need to align in Moorish science?
And more signs, when you're talking more signs, like when you look at the circle 7 and you see that circle with the 7, and then see an opening at the top, opening at the bottom, opening to the left, opening to the right. You take that circle, and it's also referred to as a nimbus. That crowns the head. When you see the nimbus, you see the opening at the top, opening at the bottom. You'll see it on the high priest. They'll have a nimbus. And they'll use that symbolically in pictures of the anthropomorphic Jesus. So you're dealing with earth and air, fire and water, or Yahweh, which means earth, air, fire, and water. It's not a being in the way that you look at it, the way that you've been told, etc. Or it's dealing with the elements. Then you have subdivisional elements. And for harmony in nature, in the operations of nature, you make matrimony according to fire and air, basically, and earth and water. And so you look at the constellation energies of the 12 constellations, which are also referred to the 12 tribes of Israel. That's symbolic. That's really constellations. And so your harmonies will be dealing with the nature of the presentment of the body, what is called the sign of the sun. Then you deal with the real being, nature of the being, which would be the moon, and the ascending, that would be the planets as they're lined up at the time of your arrival, etc., the lineup, etc., and you look at the harmonies. And so the mating would be according to the rules of nature. Therefore, everything will be done astrologically according to the heavens. So you would by nature, if a man sees or gazes upon a woman and he wants to meet with her, he would have to come through the family, and they would do a look at you and look at the daughter. And if you're not harmonically mated according to the nature, they would not sanction the matrimony.
It's actually called in astrology synastry. You can get a synastry chart done, a reading done. If you have a person,
yes,
that the two of you have the information, the birth time, yes, and date. It's like everybody usually has a date. A lot of people don't know the time.
You would make sure that the planets, at least in general, at least 2 of the planets in the Trinity would be harmonic. Now, if there's a persistence of the matrimony, you would logically know how to read and know how to navigate with your carpenter's tools the characters if there's what you would call a resistance or a clash, or squaring of some of the planets. So logically, you would not, in accord with nature, deliberately mate to who were not naturally harmonic according to the planets. Why? Because you bring beings here sick, with maladies, etc., because they would be dealing with those clashes of the spirit, etc. Now that might sound odd to most of you, but really that's the way that matrimonies were planned. And this is aside from what you would call constructive, what you call contributions to the families by design. This is why in Asiatic African culture, many what you would call matrimonies would be taking place at a very young age, even if they didn't come to the same house together.
They already knew that they lined up.
They were already
aligned
by the families. And this is so that you would not corrupt the continuity of the families.
Which meant the families studied and utilized astrology.
According to wise men, follow the stars.
Right, of course.
The dummies rebuke and then create havoc, or what you call disharmonies. And then, of course, disharmony creates what you call negative tone and vibration, which causes dis-ease. There you go.
Okay, we see another question.
And so now it gets back to the knowledge of the Ankh in the womb, doesn't it? the applied science of the number nine does it, and why that's a part of Asiatic African culture and it's ancient. But people, in modern days, because mating and dating has been used as support as a sport, they think it's offensive that the parents would protect their daughters and would not let them just mate with somebody to come along that's checking out their keisters.
Well, it was interesting. I was having a conversation with a brother who called me today from Ecuador.
Yeah.
And he was saying how difficult it is right now with the current situation, mask, social distancing, to find, someone, to connect. And then we need to say this. I'm not saying, we need to say that my concern with people is that if they have taken the V, that you need, how I used to ask people, what's your status when it came to, did you have an STD or did you have your HIV? Yeah. So now you got to be careful about connecting with somebody who's taken a V who will transmit
a mutation because they get the virus through the shot.
Yeah. So and then there's exchange of bodily fluids and stuff. I'm just being real. Did you
like we talked about earlier today, talking about so soon do people forget smallpox and blankets given to people, estrogen and viruses given to people with quote unquote free government cheese, viruses given to people, and sicknesses promoted amongst the Aboriginal people through the Tuskegee experiments, and they ain't the only ones. And they're falling for it again. They forget Frederick T. Gates with the mind control system with the general education boards, and they're from and they ain't tying it together with the name Gates as of late to give them viruses in the name of vaccines. The mark of the beast.
There's a whole lot to be concerned with now.
If people would pay attention to details, they would see it. Yeah. They don't see it because people don't pay attention to details.
I heard there was a pastor that recently put it out there to, I guess, his congregation, or anybody that's going to visit his church. If you have the V, don't come here.
Yeah, because they go transmit it. Now they are what? A petri dish for the virus because it was just given
for the V. Please. Yeah, that's it. Here's one. Fernando.
Plus, you know what they haven't been telling the people too? That when they take the virus, that it nullifies
the V.
They take the V. It nullifies their life insurance policy. If they pass form within a year, anytime within a year, and particularly within weeks or months thereafter, their insurance policy is nullified because those vaccines have not been, those V's have not been approved lawfully. Therefore, they agreed voluntarily to be petri dish test beds, and they put their own life in jeopardy. Do the research, y'all.
There's a question. Fernando Pizarro said, "Is Puerto Rican a nationality, or am I Taino, Arawak, or more?"
Taino and Arawak are Carib Moors. Remember when the hybrids took over the Caribbean areas under the Inquisition, because it has been our tradition, and you can ask your elders, the old African tradition, Bantu tradition of the wealth being worn by the women. And we would put the gold and the silver in both their turbans and also around their necks and on their arms. The hybrid Khazarians, pretending to be Christians, the Constantinians, would cut off the people's heads and necks of the women and children stealing the gold, and they reported back to the hybrid monarchs and said, damn, this is a rich port. And that's how San Juan Boricain became known as the rich port, or Puerto Rico, the rich port. No, it is not your name. No, it is not the people's name. No, it's a statement made by inquisitionists who were robbing our people. And remember, they almost wiped the people out. And they gathered the different Moorish tribes of Taino and Arawak from the surrounding islands and repeopled it and killed off a lot of the males and used the women, the young women, as sex slaves. So don't get confused about what you see. That is the truth. No, you're not Puerto Rican. You're Moors, Moro. And most of you who've been to the island knows of those ancient Moorish forts that people from around the world visit. And so your hybrid Paleolith Europeans took over. That's what's going on. Moro.
We're long day.
Yes. Anyway, we hope that we have established enough of stuff that most of you already know, that this concept of you being obligated to this fake debts that they've been telling you that we're in is a total fraud. It's actually continued Inquisition operations. And as you already know, over the years, we've been telling you that the IRS is Inquisition operations. And we just shared with you some of the notes from one of the world pastors, Alamo, who's a Christian, who's telling some of the history. And that some of those notes that we talked about, you know, Alamo wrote around the time of Reagan being president or praetor for the United States Corporation. That was in your early 80s, etc. But anyway, hopefully that you learned something. Hopefully that you're encouraged and uplifted and understand and comprehend that while we were under attack from many areas, and while the truth is condemned as being wrong, nevertheless, humanity must be raised up. The House of Reawakening Minds is here to support you. Support the House of Reawakening Minds so we can continue to do this work. Also, that as we were talking about earlier, some of these things that that go into a lot of these treaties and activities and a lot of these international law cases of the different nation states, referring, as we talked about earlier, France and the U.S. corporation. We'll go into that into more details to make you awaken to the fact that these people that you thought was government are indeed not government and are indeed operators of a criminal operations of corporations. Support the House of Reawakening Minds because the House of Reawakening Minds supports you. Thank you.
You know what? I do want to add this, just to let you all know. I was sending some funds myself to the House of Reawakening Minds via Cash App, and I noticed that when I put in $Reawaken, there was another Cash App that said reawakeningminds@gmail.com. That is not us. Please do not. If you use Cash App to support us or to purchase a USB drive, please pick the one that says Naila Gilliam under the $Reawaken. I don't know who that other person is who created one with an email address, because ours is House of Reawakening Minds, not Reawakening Minds. So please do not send funds. And if you send funds to them, there's nothing I can do about it. But I noticed it, Grand Sheik, that somebody else created something very, very similar.
Yeah.
It is not the House of Reawakening Minds. Yeah. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you so much. for supporting, as Grand Sheik said, the House of Reawakening Minds. Many of you ask questions of
history, um, the rule of man know thyself, and also the common statement of and philosophical inspiring statement, go back to that state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers, or turn your hearts back to your ancient mothers and fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. And so when we look at the fundamentals of organized government at Midgard Earth, or the operations of government on the planet Midgard Earth, um, we go back to the ancient principles of Sabi. People will say Sabi or Saba or Sabian or the ancient Gnostics, etc. And Sabi or Sabians relates to the men who have hair like lamb's wool, or those who wear the wool. And that's what Sufi also means that. So when you look at those principles, they go back to the ancient world of the ancient Canaanites, Moabites, founders of civilization, and those principles by which government is was constructed, and those principles live even up to this day. However, knowing the fact that many people in high places of powers have corrupted those principles and have, by deliberate design, failed to, by design, transfer those principles of origin to the people, is one of the reasons why we're dealing with this subject tonight. And this is redundant because, as we've talked many times, truth, it doesn't come in versions, it's just what it is. And as I heard Dr. Naila often say to people in different conversations, you know, the principles are ancient. And all we have to do is really look at the true philosophical meanings of the old books like the Quran, the Bible, and other books, going back to the root of them and getting a better comprehension and understanding of those books, as opposed to rejecting them out and out when we find out that those who have been governing our lives in the political and religious world have not only been deceiving the people and abusing the people, but actually have misrepresented the truth, or misrepresented the books, and in the process has had many people reject the books rather than put them in their proper context for better comprehension and understanding and application. And therefore, lex nemini facit injurium. And that is Moorish Latin, which means the law does injury to no one. So take some notes, and then we'll get into, conversation. And these are not new conversations with you. This is just clarifications, because in the process of, our walk on this planet, so many people are coming into what you would call, what is commonly related to in these days as consciousness, or enlightenment, or seeing, etc., or introspection, or insight and introspection, and learning, some willingly and some less willingly, to have respect for insight and that introspection, which has not been a common practice at Midgard for many generations. Thus, again, the law does injury to no one. So don't condemn the law when you don't know the law. But also, one of our problems has been in our relationships, particularly with members of the Roman Curia, who have been ruling Midgard planet for many centuries now. And the people are waking up to the fact that not only have they misgoverned humanity and the operations of government on the planet, but have in fact contaminated those principles, distorted those principles, etc. And so I will take some excerpts from an old lesson book of the Moore's Order of the Round Table, the Superliminal, and go into Lex Nomini Facit Injurium. And some of those principles I had presented in the book MST of A Degrees years ago, which is also has some excerpts from the supraliminal. Lex nomini facit injurium, which means the law does injury to no one. So we're going to go into some of the reasoning why, and also why we've also always presented to the people to study jurisprudence, which is the science that treats of positive law, and that law and history goes together. And so we're going to give a little bit of information as to why you should, with a reasonable mind, look at that from that perspective. Now, when we look at and consider the word lex, that's L-E-X, which means law. So lex means law. We recognize and cognate its etymological meaning being as follows. Lex is of Moorish Latin origin, of customs and traditions, and is related directly to the civilization-oriented discipline noted as jurisprudence. That's Jurisprudence, jurisprudence. Jurisprudence is the science of law, quote unquote, the science of law, and the philosophy of law, quote unquote. So jurisprudence is the science and the philosophy of law. And thus lex, which means law, refers to the formal science and analytical study of the nature of law, ancient and modern. So keep that in mind. As an example of lex origins, we can consider natural law or nature's law. Now, natural law is referenced also as related to those ancient philosophical customs and traditions coming down from the archaic Sabian or Sabi Gnostics. These lex or law principles composing jurisprudence philosophies has origins coming down from the ancient natural peoples, Sabi. So Saba is capital S-A-B-A or S-A-B-I. Sabah is collectively the customs, the traditions, and the people of the ancient world, which you will commonly be told of as Hikupta or Egypt, which is the collective of the Asiatic African world. Collective, not just the area geographically referred to as Egypt today on your general Mapamundi constructs. It is the conglomeration of the ancient people of the